I think I forgot to run the recording. Okay, so as we talked, these are some basic mathematical operations that we can do with numbers. And we also looked at data types, like we have numbers, we have strings, we have undefined, we have null, we have symbol, we have boolean, we have begin, we have objects. For the sake of this lecture, I will remove this. I will also remove these ones. For this lecture, we will only talk about these types: number, string, undefined, and boolean. So booleans, as in Python, we have true and false. For strings, as in Python, I can write string inside double quote. I can write them with single quote. And I can even write them using backticks. These all are strings in JavaScript. I can concatenate strings. For example, hello plus world. This is just combination of these two strings. I can even add a string. For example, this is 5 plus 5. For example, in this case, JavaScript will convert this part to string. For example, in Python, as you remember, we converted it to string, then added it. But in JavaScript, you don't have to convert it. You can, for example, you can do it. You can say that this should be a string. Then you can add them. But you don't have to, because JavaScript will automatically convert this to string and then will add them. It will just concatenate them. Booleans are easy, strings are easy, numbers are easy, but we don't have integer division in JavaScript. For example, in Python, you remember we had this double division, which was integer division. The only thing you can do in JavaScript is just normal division, and it will always return you this decimal value. If the result is not integer, it will return you this decimal value. And of course, you can do it. There's a function which is called, for example, mass.trunc. For example, there is a function which is called mass.trunc. You can do it like, it will give you the only integer part of the result. Trunc means just cut the part that comes after the dot. It will just trunc and will give you the integer part. So usually when we write JavaScript, we use it inside our HTML document. For example, I can open a script tag inside my body tag or head tag, doesn't matter. And inside this script tag, I can write my JavaScript code. For example, 1 plus 1, I don't know, hello world, etc. These are all JavaScript that we can run inside this script tag. And if you want to output something to the console, for example, I want to output something to this browser console, I can use a function which is called console.log. Console log is the same as print in Python. So in Python, we have print. In JavaScript, we have console.log. For example, I can say console.log 1 plus 4. If I refresh the page here, and you will see that the 5 is logged here. It even shows the exact place where this was printed. For example, I can click on it. It will show that this line printed this line on the console. As you remember, in Python, we created variables. For example, if I want to, let's say, if I want to create a variable which is called x, and I want to assign value 4 to it, then I have to declare it using a var keyword. Var x equals to 4, it just means declare a variable which is named x, and the value is 4. In Python, we didn't have semicolons. like we didn't have to put semicolons after each line. In JavaScript, we don't have to either, but it's good practice to actually put semicolons, because if you don't, sometimes there can be some mistakes that JavaScript engine won't be able to like parse your code correctly. And so usually we put semicolons after each statement. For example, this is one statement. I created a variable and I put semicolon. So well, let's actually, we can do the same thing we have done with solving quadratic equation in JavaScript. For example, let's open our Python files, new window. Where was our Python lectures? Lesson 3, lesson 1. Yeah, this was our quadratic equation, right? We had three variables, A, B, and C, and then we calculated discriminant. So in JavaScript as well, what we are going to do, 2, 6, and 4.5. Okay, I will create an A, which is 2. I will create a B, which is 6. I will create a C, which is 4.5. Then I want to calculate the discriminant. For example, discriminant is B multiplied by B minus 4 multiplied A multiplied C. Okay, so this is our discriminant. Then, for example, we looked at some conditions. If discriminant is 0, then we printed this. If discriminant is greater than 0, we printed this, and else we printed the equation has imaginary roots. I can do the same. For example, if I want to use if and else conditions in JavaScript, I can write if else like this. I have to put this braces here, and inside the body I have to put this curly braces. For example, I will write if d is equal to 0, console log, the equation has only one root. Else if, we can write it like this, else if d is greater than 0, we can print console log, the equation has 2 roots. And else, we can print that the equation has imaginary roots. Okay, so this almost looks the same as in Python, but in Python we don't have this curly braces, and we don't have var keyword. We don't have this brackets inside our condition. And yeah, this is actually, if you know Python, if you know any other programming language, actually this is going to be very easy for you. And yeah. And we also talked about this undefined type, which is just undefined, which just means it's something that is not defined. Like we know number, we know string, we know Boolean, but what is undefined here? I can show it to you. For example, I can create a variable. For example, this variable doesn't have a value, does not have a value. Okay, I created this variable, but I didn't assign it a value. If I console log this, then you will have on console, I have undefined, because this value is not defined. And type of this variable is also undefined. Okay. Undefined just means we have this variable, but we don't have its value. So as a result of our solving this equation, as you see, we have the equation has only one root. Let's actually play with this variables. Equation has 2 roots, and we can play with it and find some value that has only one root. Okay, Actually, yeah, let's make it very big number, maybe. Yeah, the equation has imaginary variables. Like we can see that all three conditions are met here. So this is our basics about JavaScript, where we created variables and where we used if-else statement. It is the same as in Python, but there are some syntax differences, like this braces and this curly braces, this brackets, and etc. And let's try to create a function in JavaScript. But first, actually, let's look at some loops as we looked in Python. Lesson 3, lesson 4. Yeah, for example, let's look at this case. In Python, we created an array which we called list. We called it grade, and then we found the average grade inside this list. Okay, we can do the same in JavaScript. So let me copy it. I copy this grades array. I just need to add var keyword on the beginning of this grades array, meaning that this is an array. I mean, this is a list. So name of this list is grades, and this consists of only numbers here. Here if I want to get lengths of this array, like how long is this array, how many elements we have inside this array, I can use this grades.lengths property. Grades.lengths will give me the lengths of this array. Then, if I want to write some for loop, for example, I can write for var I is 0, I is less than n, and I plus plus. I can write this loop like this. And what we did there, for example, if you want to find the sum, okay, I want to find sum of all values inside this grades. Then what I'm going to do is I will add sum equals to sum plus what? Grades i's element. I just add all these elements to my sum variable. As in Python, we can shorten this and write plus equals, which means sum equals to sum plus this value. And at the end, let's say that I want to divide sum by n, which will give me average grade. So this is our average grade inside our grades list. So there is also another loop, which is called for off loop. For example, we can use it like this. For example, for var grade of grades. Instead of grades, I will write just grade. It just iterates over each one. For example, grade will be 90, then grade will be 80, grade will be 60, grade will be 95, grade will be 65, and etc. So this actually is more readable version of this loop, and the result will be the same. In JavaScript, we also have a while loop. For example, I can do the same with while loop. For example, let's create an I here. I can do the same with while loop. For example, while I is less than n. For example, I plus plus. Plus plus, it means just increment operator. I plus plus means I plus equals 1. Okay, or I equals to I plus 1. Now, plus plus, we don't have plus plus operator in Python, but in JavaScript, in Java, in C, and most of the language, actually, they have this plus plus operator. I can do what? Sum plus equals grades dot I. So this is the same. This will give me the same result. So we actually saw that we can do. We can use while loop. We can use for loop. We can use for off loop. All of them will do the same thing. As in JavaScript, we also have, as in Python, we also have it in JavaScript. As you see, we still have the syntactic differences. For example, in Python, we put here colons, but in JavaScript, we just put these curly braces, meaning that inside these curly braces, we should write the body of this while loop. But in JavaScript, we don't have this issue using tabs. For example, I can write it anywhere, for example, like this. In Python, whenever you write wrong indentation here, you will get some error. But in JavaScript, like you don't have this kind of problem because we actually know where this file starts. We know where all the script starts. We know where this file ends, etc. So these are loops. We looked at variables, loops, and let's go to the next topic, lesson 4. Lesson 4, actually, we wrote a function which was a sort algorithm. Lesson 3, lesson 1. Yeah, let's look at some functions. Let's say I want to create a function in JavaScript. To create a function in JavaScript, you have to write the word function itself first. For example, this is function. It means that I'm creating a function, and the function will be named what? For example, let's call it square. And then body of this function will be inside this curly brackets. And parameters of this function will be inside this brackets. For example, I can give it x, and it can return me x multiplied by x. We can try this function actually in our console. For example, let's call this square function. Like, for example, I can give it 5, it will give me 25. I can give it, I don't know, 6, it will give me 26, and etc. As in all of the things in Python we know about functions, it is also true in JavaScript. But as you see, we have just a little bit syntactic differences. We can create a function in JavaScript as just like this. For example, square. I just create a variable and assign a function to my variable. This is also another way to create function. Let's try to create our a traditional function which we called is prime. For example, let's call it is prime. As you remember, we wrote a function which was to find if this number is prime or not. And what was it like? For example, I start from 2. Let's call it divisor. D starts from 2, D stops at n, and D++. It means that we start from 2, we stop at n, and then we add 1. So if we find that this n is divisible but by this divisor, if this is divisible by this number, then we return false. If it is not, at the end we return true, that meaning that this number is prime. Example, let's call it is prime function here. This number is prime. This number is not prime. This number is not prime. This number is prime. Of course, you don't have to use the console here. You can just call that prime or not. Maybe we create a variable and then we call it with some number. And the result of this variable will be the return value of this function. Just like this. Well, let's return to our Python files. I don't know if we have some more things to look at. Yeah, let's look at what makes JavaScript unique, that what we can do with JavaScript. Okay, and let me explain you something here. Then we can have the break. Okay, let's say this is your browser. Okay, inside your browser, what you have an HTML document, aka web page. Okay, this is a web page. And what we have JavaScript. We have a program that understands and runs JavaScript here inside our browsers. Let's say I open this page and we have JavaScript running here. And browsers usually give JavaScript some APIs. As you remember, API is what was API? Application Programming Interface. It means that browsers enable JavaScript to modify the document itself. For example, whenever I go here, let's go to W3 schools and write JavaScript. For example, this is our document, right? JavaScript can modify this document. For example, I click it, it just shows something here. And I don't know, I will click something else, it will change something else. So browsers will give JavaScript some APIs that we can modify this HTML document. What are these APIs? For example, you can go to your console and you can write a document, for example. Document, as you see, it highlighted everything here. It means that I can see this document through JavaScript. Let's actually console log what's inside document. Okay, what's inside document? We have this document here. We have this body. Then we have this h1 here. Okay, so I can actually write document.body. It means that document.body will return me this body as a value, and inside this body what we have, inside the body what we have one h1 and we have script. If I call, for example, document.body.first child, not first child actually, let's document dot body dot children. Okay, document body children, it will give me an array which we will have h1 and script, which means what we have here, like inside body we have h1 and we have a script. I can access this h1 from JavaScript. Okay, what's this? Like document body children, which is an array, like zeroth element of this array is this HTML element, which is h1. I can get value of this h1 and I can change it actually. Okay, let's actually assign it to some variable. Okay, let's call it h1. Let's actually call it my h1, maybe my header, maybe just header. Okay, this is my header, and I can change its value actually. For example, header dot text content. As you see, it gave me the text content of this HTML element as a string. I can get this as a string. I can even change it. For example, I can write here, hello Python. And it will change to hello Python. As you see, using this document is called, we call it document API. Using this document object, we can actually modify this HTML document in real time. For example, I can say that, for example, whenever you click this button, I will change this text. I don't know, whenever you click this button, I will do something else. I can do all of them through these APIs. What else I can do with JavaScript? I can actually I can interact, and like I can respond to user events. What are user events? For example, what user does in web page. Users usually, for example, how, I don't know, move mouse, I don't know, click button, I don't know what they do, scroll, for example. And these are some of the user events that we can respond to. Actually, you can respond to any event using JavaScript, but these are some user events that you can respond using JavaScript. For example, I can respond to mouse move. I can respond to, I don't know, click events. I can respond to scroll events, and etc. Event is just something that happens. For example, let's do something like this. I will create a button here. Okay, I will create a button here. I will call it click me. So how can I select that button? For example, document, body, children, 1. So we have 0 is h1, 1 is this, and 3 is script tag. Okay. So we need this button actually. No, we need this button. We need to select this button. I select this button and I will assign it to a variable. For example, my button will be this one. Then what I can do, I can say that button on click, for example. Whenever we click this function, I will run this. Whenever we click this button, I will run this function. Okay. I added this event listener, meaning that whenever user clicks this button, this function will run, and this function will console log this hello world. For example, I clicked. So this worked like this. So I can even change it. For example, let's actually remove it from here. I want to keep it, but let's remove it for now. So I select my header, for example, document, body, children, 0. Var, for example, button will be document, body, children, 1. Okay, this button is like header is 0th children, 0th child, and button is first child. And I run this function saying that whenever button is clicked, on click, I will run this function. What this function is going to do, it will change the header. For example, header text content will be, I don't know, Hail Hydra. I refresh the page. So I added this event listener, like on click. I'm listening to click event, which means that whenever we click this button, this function will run. I click it, so it says Hail Hydra. And we can change a lot of things using this stuff. For example, let's say I want to listen to some click events on document. For example, document on click. I want to listen to click event not on the button, but the whole document. For example, wherever the user clicks, I want to know where they clicked. And I can even get this event object from that document. For example, let me remove it for now. For example, console.log, let's console log. Document on click means that yet the whole document, you will listen to click event. Event dot page X, event dot page Y. For example, click, I clicked at this point, X is 299, Y is 81. For example, if I click here, Y will be 2 because I clicked very top of the page. If I click here, X will be 3 because I clicked here, like the left of the page. We can use it like this. For example, let's call X, var X equals to this, var Y equals to this. And we can change this header text, for example. Header dot text content equals to what? X is X plus Y is Y. For example, I clicked here, I clicked here, I clicked here, I clicked here, I clicked here. Every time I click, it changes. I clicked here, it changed the coordinates of this. Like you can do a lot of interesting things using this stuff. I don't know if like you have seen a lot of interesting stuff on the internet. We will try to implement something. Let's say whenever you click this button, like whenever you hover over this button, I want to move it to somewhere else so no one catches this button. Let's actually try to do it. I don't know how, but let's try to do it. Okay. Okay. So button on mouse over means that whenever I will hover over this button, whenever my cursor comes on this button, this event will run. This event is called mouse over event. I hovered over this button. Let's actually change its place. How can I change its place? Using CSS actually. For example, using CSS, we have some attributes like position absolute. Let's call top sample. Let's actually call left, I don't know, 100 pixels. So go here, right, I don't know, not right, let's call top 200 pixels, 300 pixels. It came here. Yeah, so let's try to do it. For example, I will write some CSS here, style. Button position will be absolute. We don't know what's position absolute, but it's okay. We haven't talked about it. I'm just using it to move this button around. And how can I access this button styles using JavaScript? I can use button style. So it will give me all the styles that button have. For example, I can change its color. Color equal to red. So it changed the color. For example, I can write here background color equals to white. It will change the background color. And so this is like this. I can use the style property to change any CSS of this button. So let's do it like this. And what can I do? Like button style dot top. Okay, let's get X and Y actually. Var X equals to, let's first do it simply. Okay, top will be, I don't know, 200 pixels. Button style left will be 100 pixels. For example, when I hover over it, it will run. You can actually add some animations, transition, top, left. Didn't work for some reason. Let's see it like this. Top is 10 pixel, left is 20 pixel. Yeah, it worked actually. Yeah. Instead of moving it like this, let's actually add some random values to them. If I want to get some random value, let's get random x. I will add mass.random. I will multiply it to, I don't know, 100. Well, let's actually see how we can use mass.random. Mass.random multiplied by 100 will give me this value, 1000. Okay, multiplied by 1000, and let's truncate it. I want an integer value. Okay, I will move them by random values. Random int, random int plus pixel and plus pixel. Actually, it works, but yeah, we can do something different here. So even though we didn't consider, for example, this button can get out of the document, but yeah, as you see, it doesn't let me to click it. I actually clicked it, yes. So you can create a game like this. For example, if a user is able to click your button, then they win some prize. We can create two other values, for example, random x, random y. We will have random x here, and we will have random y here. This is more interesting. Let's actually try to make a game, for example. Var h1 is equal to document body children 0. So whenever we are able to click this button, I will change the text of this text, h1 text content. Congratulations, you catched me, for example. Let's try it. Okay, I cached it, so I don't know if this is correct spelling. Okay, these are the sum of interesting stuff that you can do with JavaScript. Let's actually have a little bit break, 5 minutes of break, and let's meet at, I don't know, 12:01. Then let's try to do something interesting with JavaScript. See you in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm back. So let's continue. So as you see, we what in browser, what we do with JavaScript is just to select elements and to listen to user events, what user does, and we can implement our logic using that. We can implement any logic. And let's see actually in very big application where you will have like a lot of these HTML elements, and you will have difficulty actually finding this like body, children, maybe we have like hundreds of children. We will write some, I don't know, children 999, I don't know, to find the element that we want to find. But this is not good to do it like this. Instead, we use selectors. For example, when we select element using CSS, we use the selectors. For example, I can add ID to my element, saying that my button, for example, my button, I can use it like this, pound sign, my button. Means that find button that has ID, find any element that has ID of this my button. And what element we have here? We have this my button. We can do the same. We can do the same with JavaScript. In JavaScript, we have an selectors. For example, instead of writing this, I can write, for example, document query selector. Inside query selector, I will pass my CSS selector here. For example, my button. This will select this button. For example, let's call it my header. My header, I can select it using like query selector, my header. My header. So it will look the same. It will behave the same. We didn't change anything. I couldn't catch it. Okay, this is annoying. Let's do actually something else. Let's work with inputs. Okay, I will remove all of this, but please let me know if you have any questions about this. I can go over it and explain it again. Otherwise, I'm going to remove this and I will do something else. Let's actually write some inputs. Okay. What can we do with inputs? Yeah, let's create password generator. Do you remember our, for example, in Python, we wrote this password generator function. Do you remember? We just generated random password using this function, which was just but we were getting random numbers from random letters from here, and we were creating this random password. I will copy it. I will copy it to my JavaScript, and I will change it a little bit because this is not Python. This is JavaScript. So how we create function? We write it like this. Sorry. Let's actually first create our form. Okay. I will create an input, which will be placeholder your password. And let's give ID to this generated password. I will give ID to this input, and I will create a button, which is copy. Okay. Whenever I click copy, it should copy this password to my clipboard. Then I will create another button, which will be generate. Let's look at our user interface. So if I click generate, it should generate my password and write it here. Okay, let's call it copy button. Let's call it generate button. So I will copy my function here, my Python function. I will change this code to be JavaScript. Okay, function generate password. will be password length. Alphabet will be this one. So alphabet size will be what? Length of our alphabet, length. And our password will be just empty string for now. And this is our for loop. And what we are going to write here, we will write a for loop which will start from 0, which will go till alphabet size. So this is our function. And we don't have this random int function in JavaScript, so we have to do it ourselves. Okay. Random index will be what? Mass.random. Let's actually search for it. JavaScript random int between 1 and 10. Let's just I don't want to think about it, so let's quickly copy this function, and I will call this function random int between this min and this max values. Right now, yeah, you don't have to think about this. I will call this random int function. As you see, it calls mass.random and mass.floor. So random index will be what? A value between 0 and length of this alphabet size. Each time we get random letter and we add it to our password. So this is our generate password. Let's actually see if this works. I will open my console. I will call this function 32. It gives me this password. And that's it. Okay. We actually need another input to select length of our password. Let's add another input. I will add this password length. So type will be number. So this is our password length. We can only enter some numbers. And our generated password will be here. Actually, let's add some styles. Input should be width of, I don't know, 300 pixels, and they should be display block so that we can see them like this. Let's add some margin bottom. Margin bottom will be, I don't know, 10 pixels, 20 pixels. 20 is a lot. 10 pixels. So if I click copy, it should copy my text. If I click generate, it should generate my password. Placeholder. Okay, like this. So first, I'm going to just collapse this so we don't have to worry about the inner working of these functions. So let's first select. First generated password will be document query selector, and it will be this. Generated password will be pasted here. So let's select password length, document, query selector, password length. Actually, let's call it input. Okay, password length input, generated password input. and then copy button, document query selector, copy button, then generate button, generate button will be document query selector, generate button. So we know what we have here. So let's look at this generated password input. Okay, the generated password input is this input. As you see, this is this input. How can I get the value of this? For example, if user writes something here, or user writes, I can write, for example, value. It will give me whatever user has written inside here. I can get this value and I can change it. For example, even I can write something like this. Hello, the value will be something. Whatever I write here, the value will be like this. I will do the same using this input, which is password length input. For example, let's say I wrote here 32. Password length input value will be 32, but as a string. If I want to convert it to integer, I have to do what? I have to do it like this. Okay, I will give a string, and this number function will return me a number. Convert the string to number, and it will return me a number. Okay. Okay. Whenever user clicks generate button, so generate button on click. Whenever user clicks generate button, what we are going to do is we will get password lengths. For example, var password lengths is number password length input dot value. Okay, we get this input and we get its value, then we convert it to a number. Then we call this function. Generated password will be generate password, and we will pass password length to this function. And it's going to give us some random password. And generated password inputs value will be our generated password. This input dot value will be our generated password. So if I click write 32 here, and then click generate, the password value will be here. If I write, I don't know, 12 here, and I click generate, then value will be here. And I think we have problem here. Alphabet size -1, yes. Okay, there is a fun problem with this. This should be password length, not. Let's say it should be 16 characters long. I don't know, 22 characters long, 32 characters long. So this is our password. In order not to be able to change it, I can add a read-only property to here. So this is read-only input. I'm not supposed to write here. I will add generate. So I cannot change it. I can just copy it. I want to be able to click copy button. Then I want to be able to copy this value to my input. But first, let's actually do some validations. For example, what if user clicks generate button, but they don't give us some value? In this case, for example, we don't generate anything, but we can let user know, for example, if If password length is 0, then I can say users that please specify password length. Generate, please specify password length. This alert function just gives you an alert saying that please specify password length. If I specify password length, the length will not be 0, so we will get the result, okay? Just like this. But if the value is 0, and then a -1, something like this, let's write it like this, less than or equal to 0. -1, please specify positive password length. Please specify positive password length. Please specify positive password length. If this is 4 characters, then we will have correct output. So so this is our password generator. So let's say we have generated our password. Then whenever I click copy, it should copy my password, and it should copy to my clipboard. I should be able to paste it in here. What we are going to do, whenever user clicks copy button, okay, we add on click. Whenever user clicks on copy button, actually we need to look at some other API which browser gives us. For example, I can go to internet and I can search for clipboard API. Clipboard API is just API that browsers give us to read and write from user's clipboard, of course, with their permission. For example, I can write navigator clipboard read text or navigator clipboard write text. Let's call it actually write text. We need write text. Okay, I will write navigator clipboard write text. We will write our generated password to our clipboard. Example, I generate password. Whenever I copy, it will be copied, and I will be able to paste it here. I actually need to change its value. For example, we can call it, for example, copy button dot text content is copied. Okay, something like this. 32. Generate copy like this. We can actually disable that button beforehand. For example, this button should be disabled. We should not be able to click it. Okay, but whenever we generate our password, we will enable this button. For example, I will say that it's disabled is false, so it's not disabled. I write something here, I generate it, so it's enabled. I click it, it's copied, then I can paste it anywhere and generate another copy, and this will be copied to my clipboard. Of course, there is, for example, in JavaScript, you can use timers. I will, for example, set timeout means that, for example, do something after 2 seconds. For example, after 2 seconds, change back button text, for example, to copy. I generate my password. I copy it, and it will change back after 2 seconds, as you see. Copy it, it will change back after 2 seconds. generate, copy, I can paste it in. So, okay, this is just, I know we have like a lot of code here, but they are not very difficult to understand. We know, for example, we already know how we generated password when we learned Python. In JavaScript, we only listen to user events and we do some stuff. I don't know, we select, we look at some validations. For example, I want my password lengths to be greater than zero, not negative number. I do some validations here. And then what I do, uh, I change input values, I read input values. This is actually the common things that any front-end developer does during their daily job, but not using actually this vanilla JavaScript, but we have a lot of frameworks. Okay. Okay, this is our generate password. Let me see actually we have anything else to cover about JavaScript, computer science, interacting with DOM. Now what is DOM? Okay. Yeah, so anything you see on the internet, you can actually go and look at their source codes. Anything you see on the internet, they do almost like modern web applications, they do almost everything using JavaScript. For example, you can even change the URL of your web page using JavaScript. For example, there is an history API. For example, I can use this history API to push, for example, history API push, I don't know, hello world. Push state, okay. Push state. And I can change the URL. As you see, for example, I change the URL using JavaScript. Like anything you see on the internet, actually, uh, most of them are done using JavaScript. If you see the real-time response request, you will see them. They use JavaScript. Actually, what I want to do now is to be able to send and receive some HTTP request using JavaScript. For example, let's create a new document here. Let's call it um, um, JavaScript script HTTP HTML. We will have this some text here, JavaScript HTTP. For example, let's look at our first backend here. Yeah, for example, let's look at our backend here, which was, for example, we returned not like list of to-dos. Yes, we return list of to-dos. We exposed some API to create to-do, I don't know, update to-do and delete to-do. We can do all of them using a JavaScript. Yeah, so let's try to do it. For example, I will run my backend on some port, where it runs on port 8080, right? Actually, I need something else, I believe. Um, So just a minute. Okay. So I will run this my server using Python. This is our backend that will be running Python first backend Py. So it runs on localhost 8080. And my frontend will run like JavaScript http.html. It will run on port 800, like 8000. And we can make some HTTP requests from. Let's call it to do app. Okay. So as you see, for example, in when we used Postman to send some request, we used it like this. For example, if I want to get a list of something, what I do, I send an HTTP GET request to http://localhost 8080/accounts. So I'm going to do the same here, but using JavaScript. If in JavaScript, if you want to send some request, we will use an API which is called XHR, XML HTTP request. Using this XHR, we can send some request. Okay, you can say XHR on load XHR response text. Okay, I want to send HTTP request to this URL, for example. What was my URL? Let's see. Yes, to-dos. It was /to-dos. Yeah, it will. My URL will be something like this. So XHR open. I will call open method. Open will call like get. I want to send get request, and I want to send get request to this URL, and I want to send this request. Okay, I just open my request and I send the request body. So let's refresh the page. If I go to the network tab, and I come here, you will see that an HTTP request to localhost 8080/todos. We have an HTTP request going there, and as a response, our Python backend sent us this. Our Python backend sent us these values. We have 3 to-dos: make a wish, wash dishes, and learn Python. So if I want to get my response from here, as you see, I console logged here xhr.response text. It means whatever comes back from the response, we will console log it. As you see, my console log here, this is my response text. I can convert it to some JavaScript object using, let's call it var to-dos equal to json.parse XHR response text. If I, whenever I convert it to some not text, JSON parse convert this JSON text to JavaScript object. So we can see it like this. As you see, this is a JavaScript array. We have some links, and this has some objects, which is like equivalent of dictionary in Python. Like this is list of dictionaries, array of objects. So I can actually show them inside some list. Okay. Let's create a table here. Table, and I'll write some styles here. Table, th, tr. They will have some border 1 pixel solid black, and they will have border collapse, and then let's create our t head. tr. And what to-dos have? ID, name, and complete. Okay, th ID, th name, th completed. Then let's add our table body. I've added t body. Then we will have some data here. So this is our table. Let's add some padding to them. Padding thr, td. Add some padding. 10 pixel, 15 pixel, it should be enough. This is our table. Okay. So this to-dos is just an array. So I can go over this array, to-do of to-dos. I can go over this array and I can append these values to here. Let's select this var tbody equals to document get query selector tbody. So I selected this element and I can append some elements inside this element. Okay. So table HTML will be just string. Table HTML plus equals to some string. For example, inside this table, what we are going to have, we will have some TRs. Okay. We will have this TR. And inside this table row, we will have some TDs. And what we returned from our Python backend, we have completed ID and title. So we have here todo.title. We have here todo.id. Then we have here todo.completed. Yes or no. So then table HTML, I will append tbody inner HTML to table HTML. So basically, whatever comes from my response, I create my own HTML and I append it to this table body to look like something like this. So I get my values and I just create my table and append it here. This is also the main part of modern web applications that heavily rely on JavaScript. Whenever you make some request, they all make a type of XML HTTP request to your backend, to their own backend, and they receive some data and they create HTML and they display your data. For example, let's look at Twitter, maybe. Okay, I will just open my terminal. What's happening here? There are a lot of requests are going. Okay, this is very complicated to see, but what other application can I show you? Let's look at this devstonely.io. This is one of the applications that I worked on. For example, as you see, whenever there are some kitchen shapes here, L shape, I don't know, something. Whenever I refresh my page, I send, let's actually clear the storage. Whenever I refresh my page, as you see, I send some XML HTTP request to my backend, and my backend sends me some data. For example, display and image should be this image, name should be this, I don't know, display name will be here, image should be here. And then I get this data and I display them on the screen using JavaScript. So this is how modern applications on the internet work. They usually heavily rely on JavaScript. If you turn off JavaScript, they usually they won't work. Yes. So I believe this is all I want to say about JavaScript, because like JavaScript is a very wide language. Even using JavaScript, you can create your own backends. For example, right now we are looking at this part where we are creating a web application, but JavaScript can also be used to write a backend. For example, instead of Java, instead of Python, you can also write JavaScript. I think in current year, learning JavaScript is a good investment, because if you learn once, you write front end, you write back end, you can even write mobile applications. Yes, if you want to learn more, there is a good website which is called javascript.info. They go over everything, every detail of JavaScript here, and they also have a Turkish version, Russian version. Like originally, author is from Russia, so they created this in Russian language. But if you are good at Russian, you can read it. But yeah, English version is also good. I'm not sure about Turkish, because this is translated by the community, and so there might be some, I don't know, mistakes. Yes, I think that's all I want to say about JavaScript. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you don't, I think we can finish. This was our last lecture. I hope you have learned something during this 1 month course.
Of course, we learned. We learned too many things, and hopefully they will be useful in our future.
Hopefully. What were you going to study in US?
CS, computer science.
So you are sure right now that you want to study?
Yeah, I'm sure.
As far as I know, you were stuck between IT and CS.
Yeah.
So
Right now, I'm sure that CS is interesting, so I can try to handle it.
yeah, it's interesting. I personally graduated from IT. Like it also includes some topics from CS, but they usually lean towards business side as well. For example, IT also includes business side. I don't know, project management, product management, something like that. But CS goes deep into programming language, theory of, I don't know, networks, etc.
Okay, if you were in the beginning of your career, would you again choose IT, or you would switch to CS?
I would switch to CS, but actually IT was also good for me, because I have learned a lot of stuff, like management stuff, which I don't need right now, but yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah.
Okay. If you don't have any questions, then let's finish this course and have a nice life. I hope we meet. You can send me LinkedIn requests. We can keep in touch.
Definitely. No problem.
Okay.
Okay then.
Goodbye.
Thank you.